Terrorism-related deaths are on the rise. The Keystone Pipeline gets plugged for now. Plus, hero or zero of the week. All these stories and more coming up on the Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds. Ready, camera,
Talent. Ready, camera.
Record.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we run down some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Standing by in the nation's capital is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields. And here in Los Angeles, we're joined by the columnist for the Washington Times. You can read her online at WashingtonTimes.com, Tammy Bruce. Now it's time to go to the top of the Rundown. And Tammy, you're up first.
All righty. Well, at the top of my rundown, terrorism-related deaths are up 60% since last year. The numbers come from a report by the nonprofit Institute for Economics and Peace. The report found that 5 countries accounted for 4/5 of the nearly 18,000 fatalities attributed to terrorism in 2013. Those countries are Afghanistan, Iraq, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Syria. 3 of which, of course, were screwed up by Barack Obama. Iraq had the most deaths with more than 6,300. You know, this is what happens when America retreats from the world. And this is what Obama effectively promised. We have learned a horrible lesson. It's not, you know, we can't look at this as, well, it's just foreigners or it's just them. We know historically what happens when we do this. And I think that the midterm election results and what happens now in the next 2 years is going to reflect the obvious failure of the foreign policy of the Democrats. Do you agree, John?
Oh, yeah. And what was it that Stalin said? 1 death is a tragedy. 1,000,000 deaths is a statistic. And the problem for Barack Obama is not even necessarily the number of deaths related to terrorism that are going on in the world. It's the fact that they're happening in such a brutal way. They're happening on television. All these beheadings are put up on the internet. People are seeing this happen, and people are being horrified. This is rocking people to their bones. And it's not just people in the Middle East that are seeing it, it's Westerners. And I think this did have an impact in the election. I think people were looking at these videos and they're looking at this impotent administration and they're saying these people don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and Michelle, I think it's a reflection on Americans know what America's capable of. I mean, we stopped fascism. You know, we pushed it back on its heels back in the last century. Don't you think also it's a reflection of that it's a contrary kind of point of view to what we know as Americans, what we're capable of, and yet it seems to be happening anyway, and we know in a way it's not us, that it's so-called leadership. Do you think that's part of it?
Of course, and I think that this administration's foreign policy, which is basically do nothing, pretend that nothing is happening, is obviously not working. I agree with John. We saw what happened in the midterm elections. I think it's because Americans don't feel secure right now. They don't feel safe, and it's because they see what's happening with ISIS. They see what's happening in Syria, in Iraq, in Pakistan. And let's not forget, there's a 26-year-old American woman held captive right now by ISIS, and this administration has done nothing. We know nothing about what's going on. Have we even attempted to get this woman back? Who knows? The administration is just acting as if this girl doesn't exist, and she has been held captive since early summer, and she may be the next person that ISIS puts out there on YouTube and beheads. And this administration, I think, has been very disappointed. I can't imagine. You can say whatever you want about the Bush administration. I cannot imagine the Bush administration being okay with a 26-year-old girl in the hands of ISIS.
Yeah, or a Romney administration putting up with any of this.
And you know what else is weird about this particular issue is it doesn't cut across the normal lines, where you have the hawks that want to go in and wanted to go into Iraq and Afghanistan on one side and the doves on the other. You have people who are anti-war, who are anti-Iraq war, and in many cases anti-Afghanistan war, at least at this point, like Rand Paul, who wants to go in and kick the teeth in of ISIS. So,
but it's funny
ISIS
what you'll say
different...
It's funny what you'll say when you want to run for president.
You think that's what it's about?
Oh, but yeah. I mean, come on. It's a Barack Obama redo. You'll say pretty much whatever you need to. I warned people about Rand Paul. That he'll say many things and he'll do many different things.
His dad isn't saying what he's saying on that.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Michelle, what do you have for us?
At the top of my rundown, personal freedom rankings are out, and the U.S. has slipped below France. The study from the Legatum Institute in London was released this week, and it found that those living in France, Uruguay, and Costa Rica enjoy more personal freedom than Americans. Taking a look at the rankings, New Zealand came in first, followed by Norway, Australia, Iceland, and Canada coming in at number 5. The U.S. is ranked 21st. The rankings are based on citizen satisfaction from their nation's handling of civil liberties, freedom of choice, tolerance of ethnic minorities, and tolerance of immigrants. This isn't surprising when you think about what has happened under this administration, where you see the NSA scandal, you see the administration going after journalists who disagree with the administration. You guys, Tammy, do you think that this is surprising?
Well, at least we're above Slovenia. I was worried about that this year. It's embarrassing. There's Trinidad and Tobago. No, I think we are so strangely low, it doesn't make sense. Now, look, I know we've got some problems here, but last time I checked, the boat people weren't trying to get to Slovenia last time. They were still trying to come here. And I think that the media has a big play in this, because a big section of that was, how do you handle immigrants, and how are you, all of that. And that's a big push from the left. This, we also don't know, I don't know if this is a self-selecting poll, but the numbers are ridiculously low for us. And until the people of the world stop trying to come to this country, Michelle, then I'll believe that there's a problem with how we're perceived. But you can't think that we're the worst and we're the only country, you guys, that people are still trying to get to.
I don't believe this poll result either.
It's a little strange.
The last time I was in France, Charles de Gaulle Airport is outside the city. So you fly in, and then you need to get on the train, and then the train takes you to the city. And all of the suburbs in between the airport and the city were on fire at the time because the Muslim immigrants felt like they weren't getting enough from the government. And it was martial law. It was a real basket case. And if that's what it takes to be ranked higher in terms of treating how a government treats immigrants in the United States, then I don't want to be higher on that list. The other thing is England, which was also ranked higher than us on that list. Every once in a while, I used to do a simulcast with a radio station called TalkSport in London. And they would have to dump me all the time, not because I was saying bad words, but because I was talking about politics. And in England, you can't talk about politics before an election because they don't have a First Amendment. So if you talk about it before the election, you could get fined, you could have your license revoked. I guess theoretically you could end up in jail. So and they're ranked higher than us? No way.
These are countries, I think, Michelle, where, in that instance, ignorance is bliss. So if the gauge is that nobody gets to say anything, and you put up with people setting your country on fire, and that's what immigrants want, then yeah, we're going to rank pretty low, and that's fine with me. But I think it's sketchy, to say the least.
At the top of my rundown, the Keystone Pipeline bill fell one vote short of passing. 60 votes were needed to push the bill forward. Senate Republicans have vowed to bring it back to the table. The loss was a blow to Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu. She was hoping that the vote on the Keystone Pipeline could help her campaign to get another 6 years in the United States Senate. That looks like it's not going to happen. And Tammy, talk to me about the strategy of this, because Nancy Pelosi did this once before in the House of Representatives when it came for some of the bailouts and stimulus bills, where she didn't count the votes before she let them vote. So she just let her members go and vote, and that never happens in Washington, D.C. The outcomes are always predetermined. You always know what's going to happen. And the fact that they didn't know what was going to happen, which they didn't, because Mary Landrieu was running around saying that she had the 60 votes, shows that either they don't know what they're doing, or Harry Reid is saying, you know what, I'm just going to let chaos go on between now and when the Republicans take over.
Well, there's a third option also, which is she maybe did have the votes, and then Barack Obama started picking up the phone. Maybe he used his phone instead of his phone and his pen. So Barack Obama did not perhaps want to have to veto that bill. And he peeled away maybe one or two. So this would be I mean, look, we know Barack Obama, and the Democrats know Barack Obama doesn't care about anybody but himself. So he's not there for the party. He's not there for Mary Landrieu. He doesn't care about governing. He's not interested in it at all. And after the horrible beating in the midterms, he says, I like campaigning and I like getting hugs. He's an adolescent. You know, he's a disturbed adolescent. So in this case, he saw this effort as something, he's not running again. Mary Landrieu's career is going to be over. He didn't care. He did not want that bill in front of him. And I'm telling you, he pushed one of her votes out. And this is what the liberals get. This is what the Democrats get for being in bed with a guy whose main singular obsession is his own navel.
I'll tell you what stood out as being bizarre in this story to me, Michelle, and that's how many undecideds were left until the very last minute. And they include some names that everyone knows, including Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin, Jay Rockefeller, and Dianne Feinstein. No one knew how those 4 Democratic senators were going to vote. Was that more about their attitude towards the Keystone Pipeline or more about their friendship with Mary Landrieu?
Well, look, I think a lot of people realize that this is a good thing, but I think that they are scared of the far left, the environmental left, and I think they were scared of President Obama. I agree with Tammy's theory. I think that she did have the votes, and President Obama finally decided to pick up the phone and work with people on Capitol Hill, actually acknowledge that they exist and talk to them. And that's what ended up happening, because I don't think he wanted to veto it. I think he thought that he would end up getting a ton of backlash for that and didn't want to have to deal with it.
Look into your crystal ball. When the Republicans take over, they're going to have the votes. They're going to have 60-plus votes, maybe 63
That's
votes.
That's going to be sweet.
Yeah, that's no question.
The votes are there in the House. What happens when this bill goes to the president's desk?
Well, it'll be interesting. I think that it depends, and Barack Obama doesn't think that far. He doesn't understand the nuances of having the benefits of signing or vetoing. He probably, because I think he's having what's called a narcissistic collapse, he will do whatever he wants. That it will also be like a tantrum. It might be the smart thing to sign it, but he'll veto it just because he doesn't want to be proven wrong, or he'll veto it to punish both parties. He'll veto it to punish the American people who gave him the bad midterms.
But if you want bipartisanship, this is an issue where 60% of the American people are on one side.
He doesn't.
Where there are Democrats in the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives that want it. If he is going to try to put out an olive branch to Republicans, then, Michelle, by signing all these executive orders when it comes to immigration and by vetoing the Keystone Pipeline, I don't think you can read this any other way than this guy is out there putting poison in the well.
The thing is with this president, I don't think he decides whether or not he's going to do something because that's how he feels. I think oftentimes he's thinking of the optics of the situation. I think if things are going well with him and he's got, pretty good press, he'll veto it because he has that capital. But I think if things are going bad, let's say things are going bad with Obamacare, then he won't veto it. I think it has a lot to do with the circumstances.
Okay, time will tell. Now it's time to move on to Hero or Zero. This is where we pick a person or a group for doing something very good or very bad. And Michelle, you're up first.
My zero is President Obama for running up over $1 million in flight expenses during Labor Day weekend. Judicial Watch obtained records for the president's fundraising trips that weekend. He flew on Air Force One to New York and Rhode Island, which cost taxpayers $500,000. He also flew to a wedding, Alex Wagner of MSNBC's wedding, which cost $350,000 to taxpayers. He also flew to Wisconsin for a speaking engagement, which cost taxpayers $650,000. And all his flights totaled $1.5 million. So all your hard-earned money that comes out of your paycheck, that's where it's going.
Well,
He's such a jerk. That's all there is to it. He's just a jerk.
well, here's the question, though. If he's going to spend that much money to go visit an MSNBC personality, how much is he going to spend to visit Al Sharpton in jail?
Yeah, there you go. We'll find out.
Tammy, what do you have for us?
All right. Well, I have heroes. My heroes are the companies that are moving into One World Trade Center in New York. Of course, the previously known as the Freedom Tower. A mobile advertising firm just rented out the tower's entire 60th floor, which is about 44,000 square feet. And last week, an online gaming company secured the 58th and the 59th floors for some 87,000 square feet of space. Over the last 6 months, the tower has rented more than 235,000 square feet. The tower has 104 floors in all. It is the 4th tallest skyscraper in the world. And you know, that's also just kind of a reflection of the standing of America. Suddenly it's the 4th, at least it's not the 21st shortest tower. But look, this is very exciting. I think it's interesting also that it's an online gaming company that is doing so well. It's taking an entire floor. But this is good news. I mean, this is what Americans do. Look, that space needs support. You've got the museum there. Oh, and Kate and William of England, without George, the cutest baby in the world, are visiting the first week of December to pay their respects at the World Trade Center Memorial. So it looks like it's good stuff, and congratulations to the companies who are supporting that building.
Would you work there?
Yes, totally. Yes, I would. Look, anyone in New York, if you're in New York, there's danger. And if you're there, you understand that every day is a gift and that you must live your life and not be afraid. I think that's in our DNA as Americans.
I think so, too. My zero is NBC Today host Matt Lauer, who claimed his second victim at the show.
Yeah.
At least his second victim that we know of. The New York Post says the anchorman is behind the firing of Jamie Horowitz, a top executive at Today. According to reports, Lauer found out about Horowitz's plan to replace co-anchor Savannah Guthrie with Hoda from the final hour of the Today Show.
Oh, boy.
Not Kathy Lee, Hoda. Lauer reportedly went to NBC News President Deborah Turnus after hearing about a plan to shake up the staff. Guthrie would be replaced by Hoda, and Natalie Morales would be replaced by Josh Elliott, formerly of Good Morning America and ESPN, as newsreader. Lauer banded with the Today Show co-anchors and basically got Horowitz fired. He was hired less than 3 months ago to help stop the falling ratings.
Wow. You think these people know what they're doing. This is all they do for a living. And this is what happens. And look, Lauer's got a lot of power, but not when your show is going down the drain.
Here's what you have to do, Michelle. If you're doing morning TV, you have to be likable. And I think that so many people who watch that show or used to watch that show think that there's blood on Matt Lauer's hands for what happened to Ann Curry.
That's right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't even understand how he pulls in the money that he does. I mean, he gets something crazy, like $7 million a year or something.
Oh, more than that, over 20.
I don't think he's very... Oh, okay. Well, I don't think he deserves that. And he's
Even
not very
more.
likable. So I think that's going to be a problem. Down the road, it's definitely going to be a problem.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. What do you think about our picks for Hero or Zero of the Week? Be sure to leave your comments in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips for Tammy Bruce, joining me here in Los Angeles, and Michelle Fields in the nation's capital. Thanks for watching The Rundown.